All right. Well, I'm Kurt Hauswirth with Public Radio 90, and this is the local spin. And our guest today is the Michigan-based artist Laurel Premo. She's been making music in the vocal and instrumental roots style for some time now, and her album from 2019 is called The Iron Trios, and she's here to talk with us about her latest solo album called Golden Loam, which is out now. So first of all, welcome, Laurel. Good to have you here.
Thanks, Kurt. Pleasure.
Yeah. So I first need to say that just to thank you for the music, because music's been really important during this ongoing pandemic. And when I found your music, I found it on the New Sounds page first. I saw some video performances and I was like, oh, this is so cool. It was just like, it kind of just made my heart feel happy. It kind of helped me relax. So first of all, I just wanted to say thank you for that. And having listened to the album now, it's a really soothing collection of works. And along with that, I read that it was self-produced and recorded during the lockdown period of summer and fall of last year, of 2020. So that being said, how have you been doing during the pandemic as a person? And what was it like to work on this project in some strange times?
Wow.
Big questions.
I'm huge. We're opening it up. I'm doing all right as a person. Again, like quietly proud of my own resilience during a time of extreme changes in my life, but also for the world. So leaning into this project at the beginning of the pandemic, during the time when we really didn't know how long this would be going on, but still knew it was a huge thing. That was a great shelter for me and a focus during a time of a lot of uncertainty, especially for musicians, but everyone.
Yeah. So it was helpful to have something to focus on during the pandemic and to work through, maybe some feelings and a lot of this uncertainty through having something tangible, perhaps, as you were going.
Absolutely.
Good.
Yeah. And it was wonderful to have, music making and the process of making a record isn't all hands-on stuff. Maybe, I don't know, maybe it's a half hands-on the instrument stuff and then a half just kind of more engineering and producing and writing of copy and promoting a thing. So I'm really grateful that I had just that very tangible hands-on work during the beginning of this, because that's truly my favorite part and the part that makes me feel most rooted and like I'm doing the job that I'm meant to do.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Awesome.
I love that part of it. Yeah.
Excellent. That's really good to hear. So you're from Michigan and you're currently based in Traverse City, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But
I
then
grew up in Iron County in the Upper Peninsula.
In Amasa.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, and I've been a Youper most of my life too. Just one quick year down in Milwaukee to teach some music, and then I came back. But you could probably ask anyone who's lived in the UP for any period of time, how important the land is, nature, and water too. Does geography inform your music, especially when we're talking about kind of roots music? And was there music in your life, earlier on as you were developing?
Yeah. Yes to both of those questions. Inspiration from my environment plays a huge role in the music that I write or the way in which I arrange traditional music. And I'm sure that I go to that subconsciously, but also very consciously sometimes in workflow, making exercises for myself to try to, I don't know what you'd call it, react to an environment with music or capture the idea or the feeling, the essence of a place so that I can share that with a listener. So those things are really some subconscious and conscious in my music work. And I'm so grateful that the UP was the place that I got to grow up because of the wilderness of experience that I got to I don't know, that it became a really big part of me as a little kid. So that's still a huge part of my creative process and just my existence as a human. In Iron County, I was raised by my folks who were both musicians and continue to play music still too. So there was a lot of music making both in the house and music invited into the house just from their friends and colleagues, people visiting who needed to spend the night somewhere. So even growing up in a really rural place, there was a little bit of there was a worldly conversation going on with people from the outside coming in.
A communal
that was,
kind of thing?
Yeah, communal and... I don't know, news from the outside world. It was very intriguing and important to me to hear a lot of different things when I was a kid. Yeah.
Awesome.
So I'm so grateful for that.
Wonderful. Yeah, that's really cool to hear that. When people think about the UP, sometimes it can be a feeling like maybe we're a little more isolated, in the geographic region that we are. When we have those opportunities to bring other voices into the area and even into your own home, I mean, that sounds like a really, it's like being full of treasures, that you can open up and hear experiences that way. And talking about geography, I wanted to talk about the title of your album, Golden Loam. And I'll say I had to look up the word loam because I wasn't sure what it was at first. But, now that I looked into it, it's a kind of soil that's made of like sand and silt and like clay. Like when you dig really deep into the sand and soil, you'll find some things. So, and when I read the press release for the album, it says that there's an electric dirt, the golden loam layered by centuries of folk. So what kind of digging did you do to prepare this project for listeners? It sounds like you're kind of digging deeper into your own musical world.
That's exactly right. I think my preparation into the sound that became this record has kind of been my whole music career so far and education. I've been working for a decade or a little bit more in roots music, and before that studying it. And and I didn't come to making this sound on guitar just out of the blue. My voice was developed from studying this music through the lens of fiddle and banjo and through the lens of being a dance musician in a traditional setting and a dancer myself. So it's like the digging, I've been digging for a long time, and I'm really grateful to feel in a comfortable place that those same sounds or impulses or just kind of musical ideas that have been in my head and part of my playing now find a really nice home on guitar too, which the guitar is used because I feel really comfortable there as a completely solo act. The amount of sustain or the dynamics possible using guitar from really clean to really gritty, I don't know. It helps me expand the sounds I can make as just one person on stage. So that's why I'm holding guitar these days.
Yeah. And you mentioned that about the sustain and, the ability to make it go from really clean to kind of a gritty sound. And you mentioned as one of your references too, like Bill Frisell, and I kind of think of that ambient sound. And I think that's where I got a lot of my personal relief, like listening through the music. I was like, boy, this really fills a space really well, whether you're on kind of the clean side to the gritty side, however fine the dirt is with this album. So there's a lot of healing that I think can come from hearing this, and there's a lot of just interesting root sound, like you said, you're kind of digging deeper into your own musical history perhaps with this release. So there's a lot of good things that you can find from listening to this. And as you said too, you made this album mostly on your own, self-produced during a really crazy time. We're still continuing to live in a crazy time, but you also had some collaboration along the way. So tell us about your relationship with Nick Garris and Eric Breton and what they contributed to Golden Loam.
Nick is an old friend, Eric a new friend. But both of these gentlemen are percussionists, and I had 2 tracks on Golden Loam that had percussive accompaniment. one of, and not your average drum set either.
Not a
both
big
kind of
kit or
folk,
anything.
minimalist folk percussion. Nick Garris is a Michigan artist who does percussive dance as his art. Actually, it's on 3 tracks because Nick was on two tunes. And on those tracks, we featured kind of different, or we arranged and engineered to capture a little bit different tones from what he was doing with his feet on both of those. One is more of a higher, trebly pitter-patter sounds, and the other is more of a driving, low thump. This is probably way more behind the music than you asked for, but I get excited about this kind of stuff.
It's all good.
So Nick and I did a little bit more collaboration over the pandemic too. And anyways, he was the first person I thought of when I thought I would really love to involve some percussive dance on this record. And Eric Breton is a musician from Montreal that was just a recommendation from a friend when I was asking around about bones or spoons players that would fit well in with a track of mine. And the influences in my life that led to that decision were more later in life, hearing the really beautiful combination of Malian artist Ali Farka Touré with some percussive bones type playing as a very minimal percussive instrument in the background. But very early in life, and kind of what opened my mind and heart to it in the first place, was playing in the Upper Peninsula with Johnny Perona, the bones player. And then also musicians that he touched with his musical life, like Randy Seppala and other folks like that. So those were sounds and combinations of sounds that as an upper Midwesterner were kind of in my vocabulary from folks like Johnny Perona's influence with the spoons and the bones, or just like French Canadian fiddle music from north coming down to us. They play a lot of like on your knees spoons playing with that music. So I felt like even though I was taking some impulse maybe from some African music, this vocabulary also was coming from a really honest place in my cultural background. So it was a great opportunity to experiment with adding in those kind of minimal percussive sounds to the record.
Very cool. Boy, you invited in some really different things into, even though it's an album that mostly focuses around like exploring roots music through the electric guitar, you've also got a lot of influences that kind of were able to join in on the project, which is really cool.
Yeah, lots of relationships.
Yeah.
In life. Yeah.
Excellent. Well, and along with that, there's a voice that we haven't talked about yet, and that's your own voice. It's mostly an instrumental album, but you've got a couple of tracks where you feature your own vocals, Hop High and I Am a Pilgrim. So tell us how those 2 tracks fit inside Golden Loam, and how you decided to invite your own voice to the table that way.
Well, I have been yearning to play more instrumental music for the past 2 records, as you mentioned. That record before this was also kind of a first step into a land that felt really comfortable for me for a long time. And so this project was mainly instrumental too, but just through experimentation and finding a comfortable spot with it again, I found, especially as a solo player, the voice can add so much, right? I'm timesing by 200% the amount of sound, the amount of voice is happening.
Sure.
Guitar, voice. So it just felt very comfortable to kind of get in a relationship with my voice again after taking some time away from that, by choice and by fate of the world. And yeah, I use it on a couple tracks, maybe also similar to the percussion choices, rather minimally or rather almost instrumentally itself. Mm-hmm. Not a lot of lyrics, long notes. Yeah. So that's how I used it. And I'll continue to involve it in my music. I had many years enjoying vocal heavy music with Red Tail Ring, my duo.
Right.
Performances with that group went away related to pandemic and some decision to concentrate on solo projects for a little while. Mm-hmm. So I had to kind of choose to start singing again. There was no regular gigs causing me to stay in habit. Mm-hmm. And it's been a vulnerable but powerful practice.
Sure. Yeah. And as you mentioned too, with kind of treating the vocal, as an accompanying instrument maybe, or something that can just kind of add to the texture of it, I think it does lend itself really well to the overall feel of the album, where there's a little bit of influence here that you draw in and a little bit over here. But overall, it feels like there's something to the center of it that doesn't necessarily have to be defined necessarily. It's just a reflection of you where you're at right now. I think that's maybe what a lot of solo musicians or people that work on solo projects want to reflect, something that's not necessarily something you can stamp with a genre, right? Just something that's like, this is who I am right now, and this is what I'm bringing to the table. And I really appreciate that.
I'm grateful.
And just a reminder, we're speaking with Laurel Premo, and we're going to mention the name of the album, Golden Loam, which is out right now, talking about the process of making the album, especially during the lockdown period, collaborative efforts along the way, and including lots of different kinds of voices on the album itself. What's ahead for you as we're still unsure of a lot of things in the world, but we're sure that we want to keep going. So what's coming up for you?
I'm continuing to teach private lessons, which has been a great communal place for me over the past couple years. And in December, I have a second string of album release shows in the Lower Peninsula so far. Looking forward to coming to the UP with that show at some point. Just haven't arranged it yet. In January, I'll be playing at Hakenpaiva at the end of the month in Hancock.
Awesome.
So that might be my first Upper Peninsula performance with some of this music. I'll be playing and teaching some Finnish tunes there. But, I'll be playing Golden Loam style music.
Sure.
And then I guess the next thing, February, I have some dates across the Midwest with my friend Jake Blunt. And I'll announce where those are going to be in a couple weeks. So I have sparse things, working hard to make them less sparse, but so grateful to be able to be, giving the music to people in this live experience again. It feels so much different than what we've all been trying to do with staying connected online.
Right. Yeah, that's got to be a pretty cathartic feeling once you can bring it in front of people in a live scenario and just share and all enjoy the sounds together. So, well, it's great to hear that you've got some irons in the fire and things are still going forward here. And we'll definitely welcome you up to the UP again. In January, there's probably going to be a little snow, but you're already used to that, so that's okay.
I almost wonder if they hired a Midwesterner just because I'd be no fear about whatever weather is in Hancock.
Be ready
in the
to
winter.
Plow up the hill. Yeah. Oh, boy. Well, Laurel, it's been a pleasure to speak with you today about the album Golden Loam and just to talk with you about your artistry, and we look forward to hearing what's coming next.
You too, Kurt. Thank you so much for having me.
Visit the Shuffle page at WNMU-FM.org for more information on how to be featured on the program.